If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. Hey everyone, today Night here, and I'm back for part 3 of my mini-series. You know who I am, but let the guests introduce themselves.
Well, I'll leap in as the talking avatar because I'm the one with the crappiest internet. I'm RJ Downard. With Jackson, we wrote a tiny little book called The Rocks Were There, criticizing answers in thing. I've written Evolution Slam Dunk on the reptile mammal transition. I got a novel out there. I keep real busy. And at the moment, I'm locked down in the house because not only COVID, but we've also got the damn forest fires that are burning up the West. And so literally we have air quality hazards here in Spokane, even though we're 50, 100 miles away from active fires.
Sounds fun times.
Wee! 2020 is crap.
Who's next?
Oh, you're muted, Jackson.
Must unmute. I thought only
Jackson
old farts did that.
It happens to everyone. I run a channel, which is my name, Jackson Wheat. We do videos about evolution and associated subjects. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go check that out.
I learn from every one of your videos, damn it.
And I am Neslik. I help Jackson out once in a while with his videos for script edit as a script editor.
It's always nice to have help.
Absolutely.
So Jackson, RJ, you both dealt with our favorite creationist, Kent Hovind, right?
Unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
So then you know all about his little thing he has, right?
Unfortunately.
The 6 evolutions, quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
his attempt at moving the goalpost.
Hovind actually doesn't delve too much into origins of life stuff because I think it's way above his pay grade. So other than lambasting it and alluding to it, he usually hoppity skips off to the fossil record and other issues rather than really delving into origins or bust issues all that often.
It was everything above his pay grade.
Pretty much.
But yeah, I already talked about the cosmic thing with what's his, I forget his name now, and I had chemical and stellar stuff with King Crocoduck. So now we're on the part number 4.
Yeah.
Again,
We're talking about what it really is and not what they claim it to be. So last year, me and Jackson had a episode. I think it's the anniversary of it, where we talked about hypothesis and theories. Now, abiogenesis, that's still a hypothesis, right? Not a theory yet, or has it been upgraded?
Well, there are abiogenesis encompasses numerous hypotheses. It happened, but how it happened is very much up for debate. Although there are some relative areas of agreement, which is kind of nice.
It's basically to just describe it. It's a huge puzzle piece. We have some picture, but the details are still a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, there. You have the RNA world, which preceded DNA. There's a general sort of consensus that the origin of life probably occurred at alkaline hydrothermal vents and a few other things, which of course we'll discuss.
Yeah, and don't forget how big of a problem it is, because it's 4.5 billion years ago. We don't have direct fossil data to be able to clarify it all. Everything you have to do has to be done by retro-engineering everything at the laboratory level. That ain't easy.
Yeah. And of course, as creationists will say, life is so complicated.
What are you talking about?
And we can only look at the... Oh, sorry.
it's in the book. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. It's right there. It's so simple.
I mean, what can we even argue with? You know, it's just right there.
Were you there?
Were you there?
Yes, yeah, and that's another bit of the recent the hot off the presses announcement about possible biosigns in Venus's atmosphere. Reinforces the notion that a lot of what you would be dealing with the fossil record are the chemical constituents, the isotope balances and things that are indicative of life being there, even if you don't know exactly what it is. And also, it should be pointed out that every religious document gets it wrong. Nobody described anything at all like what we can observe as the benchmarks. Bacterial life a long time ago, then an awful lot of time before anything bigger than a microscope can see appearing. No religious text ever got that straight.
But RJ, it was all metaphor. We knew that all along, but it was just metaphor, right?
Wait, are you saying people in the BC eras didn't have technology to observe microbes and stuff like that, and every animal and basically go to see every animal and check their blood type? Are you saying that?
Well, according to Jordan Peterson, ancient people knew about DNA. So.
Is he still doing? Is he still doing? Yeah, no, he's been in like a coma, hasn't he?
Yeah, as we all know, the ancient Babylonians commonly made use of CRISPR.
Right. Yeah. Yikes.
You had these depictions of half human, half animal things. So they were all very clearly making GMOs back then.
Oh, and remember, don't laugh. The ancient astronaut types and your Zechariah Sitchin's people and some of the ones circulating around the Nephilim giant groupies thing actually do think that there was genetic engineering that was going on in biblical times and in ancient times by the super civilizations and the aliens and all that. So don't be careful of what you speak, Nestle.
And the Ica stones clearly show when those ancient aliens came to Earth.
Oh my God! Have you seen Depper Dino's recent hangout with I think it's TD Lane.
Oh yeah.
I think it's called Answers in Genesis, lying about dinosaurs again. It is also interesting. I think it's like a few months before there was one talk with Michael Denton, I think, and he claims that Velociraptor is a bird.
Oh yeah,
but that recent talk from Answers in Genesis, the other guy says it isn't not a bird.
Yeah,
what the hell?
I watched part of that where he said I was blown over when he said Chanuraptor, which is a dromaeosaur, is identical to Archaeopteryx. Well, if that's the case, then I guess we're done. I mean, we've been arguing with them.
I read Genesis, and I don't see any of that anywhere in Genesis.
That's the division between birds and dinosaurs. So
right. I mean, they always claimed that Deinonychus, etc., were all featherless theropods. Now they're birds. So
they are finally following Fiducia. Finally,
at least they're being consistent because they would always cite him as saying, "Oh, he says that birds aren't dinosaurs." Well, what about the other stuff he says? Well, I guess they finally took a look at it and said, "All right, fine then. Everything goes, I guess."
Yeah. For the people in the audience, Fiducia doesn't just say that birds are not dinosaurs. He also says right now. He also says that even the Manoraptors, like Velociraptor and I think also Oviraptor.
I think
all those are also not dinosaurs. They are just birds.
He was
that
forced
convergently evolved to be dinosaurs.
He's forced into that because of the feather argument. What you're seeing actually is the evolution of the anti-evolution position on this.
Yeah.
Because I think in another 10 or 15 years, most of the young Earth creationists will have just shunted the feathered dinosaurs over into a Barrowman that will lump dinosaurs in with birds.
Wouldn't that be fun? As stem birds, right?
Yeah.
I think I know recently or a while back ago, we found that there was amino acids in meteorites and stuff. How do you think they?
Oh
formed
yeah, that's
up
actually
there?
all
Oh, yeah.
part of the presentation that I prepared for this.
Ooh, a presentation.
Yeah, I can screen share, huh?
Yeah, like I before they did that experiment. They did on make them on Earth, and then they found like, oh, they're already made up in space.
Yeah, that's the discovery of organic molecules on chondrites like the Murchison meteorite and Enceladus and nebulae using radio astronomy. It's not super surprising, but
Yeah. It turns out that the amino acids are very easy to make, like by a variety of mechanisms, even of course in space, even without water apparently, or maybe even without liquid water.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems that or producing organic molecules is the easy part. Producing life, though, is probably the hard part.
Yeah.
It also surprises me, like some people attempt to jump to the conclusion that amino acids in meteorites, maybe life got created by meteorites landing down on Earth, providing the amino acids. But I don't see that happening actually. So I think most of the biochemistry got started just in one place, like in a hydrothermal vent. That's my suspicion.
You mean like in that spore game?
Yeah.
Another factor that's really started to take hold is the wet-dry cycle issue, which it was realized that there are chemical reactions that can occur and are facilitated by water coming in and then going out and coming in and going out. And remember, in the early Earth, the tides are bigger, the
Tide
days
comes in,
are
tide goes
shorter.
out.
So you've got the cycles automatically happening in a quicker context. And as they're starting to fold that information in, it's making things a little bit easier to work out what's going on.
Nis, I do have to say, I've been reading A New History of Life by Ward and Kirschvink. Have you read that? It's our 2016 book.
I will look it up. A New History of Life.
Yeah. Actually, what I believe it's Kirschvink has argued that RNA came to Earth from Mars.
What?
Yeah, he argues that the chemical reactions needed to form to form RNA or ribose and to have it stabilized by borate minerals wouldn't have occurred in the hydrothermal vent area. It would have occurred in an area that would have needed the wet dry cycles that RJ was mentioning, but we wouldn't have had those on Earth because there were no sources of land yet. But it could have happened on Mars, he says, and then the pre-RNA could have transported to Earth. So,
although you can get
I don't know if I buy it, but
throwing crap from one
book.
planet to another, it seems a real long shot for me.
Well, they mentioned that. Well, no, yeah, I agree. But they were arguing.
I will look up
strongly
the book.
for it, so.
I will look up the book. It seems interesting, but I don't see that happening. To be frank.
Overall, aside from that, it's pretty much standard stuff in terms of the history of life, like Great Oxygenation Event, Cameron Explosion.
Maybe the mistake is they assume that maybe life started with RNA. Maybe like amino acids are relatively easy to make. Maybe like small peptides could have catalyzed the first reactions for amino acids.
I agree with you.
RNA nucleotides, maybe.
Yeah, speaking of,
it's also possible.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, either peptide nucleic acid or threose nucleic acid might have been a precursor or something else.
So speaking of the RNA first thing, I was always wondering about something. Between the RNA and DNA, they have three similar letters or whatever they're called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Only one's different. I was
Yeah,
wondering.
uracil versus tyrosine.
I was wondering.
I mean,
Oh, thymine. Yeah, you're right.
I was thinking about. Was that thinking how that DNA was formed? That one letter turned to the other letter and it became DNA that way, or mutated into the T?
well, it's only like a small change to go from uracil to thymine, isn't it, Nestling?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I cannot describe it on the top of my head, but it's like an extra or like an yeah, just one small.
And uracil
if
seems to have some interesting
Yeah.
properties that are probably the reason why it's got kind of a leg up in this.
Yeah.
So it's not so much why uracil is used in RNA instead of thymine. It's why thymine got into the mix as a byproduct in the DNA thing. The main difference between RNA and RNA has some catalytic properties that DNA doesn't. But DNA is really nicely stable. And it can
Yeah.
form long polymers in a way that RNA isn't quite as good at. Although the other factor that we don't know yet, you can form triple layers in DNA as well. And even some of that occurs in natural biology. So we don't know whether or not in the mix of possible life systems, whether triplex DNA systems and interaction with RNA and DNA connecting. The new research that Sutherland's doing is having RNA and DNA working together right from the start, not an RNA versus DNA world.
Yeah, and we really do we don't know, or do we, if there was one common ancestor or several, because with all the horizontal gene transfer going around.
Oh, it was probably a population.
Yeah.
Less universal common ancestor is probably a collection of sort of little cells all interacting with each other.
Although I think it was also Nick Lane who said that the common ancestor was like an inhabitant of the hydrothermal vent that didn't had a outer membrane yet. That's common ancestor split, and then each lineage got a different type of membrane, which explains why archaea and bacteria have different types of membranes, and then they escaped the hydrothermal vents.
Yep.
What that means, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of funny.
This bypasses a lot of the arguments that creationists do, where they obsess about the high radiation dosage that you would be getting on the surface. To the extent that things are occurring down in hydrothermal vents, it doesn't care what's going on the surface.
Also, Jackson, I looked up I think I have the book on my ebook list.
Oh yeah,
I've been reading it. I'm up to the Cambrian explosion. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
so I think one of the authors proposed the theory of facilitated variation, right?
So have you heard of this Dimitri guy?
Of what?
Facilitated variation, like a theory of variation. Like if you look it up on Wikipedia, for example.
I don't know.
Okay.
Have you heard this Dimitri guy?
Proposing the peptide RNA. Well, that's what we were talking about earlier with the peptide nucleic acid and threose nucleic acid.
Yeah, I think Jack Sostak and others have been fascinated about PNAs as well as RNA and DNA. And so I would call those like training wheel stages, where there might have been very viable systems of early pre-LUCA life that either got pieces of them incorporated in the later full-blown life that we know as LUCA, last universal common ancestor, or might have just done a thing for a while and then got shunted to the side. And that's why issues like the Cambrian explosion, where so many phyla were running amok and most of them eventually went extinct, that you've got the idea that there's stuff going on in that early stages of life that don't necessarily lead to the outcome that we know, but were part of the processes that were going on. And it's hard to figure that out 4 billion years later.
Yeah. Also, I was mistaken. It's not the same people. Like one of the last names looks a lot like the last name of the other, but it's not the same. So sorry.
Oh yeah, I saw that Kirshner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but yeah, that looks interesting.
Yes, there is a lot of difference between Jared Kushner and Kirschvink, the scientist.
Well, we were talking about Kirschvink versus what was his first name? Mark Kirschner.
Yeah. There's just like there's several Sean Carrolls, and if you don't remember which initial
Yep.
it is, you could be talking a cosmologist or one of several biologists.
Too many.
Yeah.
I haven't read anything about the biologist Sean Carroll, but I probably should. Like he wrote At Water's Edge, didn't he?
I'd have to check up. Let me find. I got my bibliography open. Let's find out how many Carrolls we got.
So Jackson, you said you had a slideshow for us.
Oh yeah. Yep. So
Yeah, the Sean B. Carroll is the one that does Endless Forms, Most Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there is a Sean Michael Carroll, who's the cosmologist,
all right.
and
Can
there's
you see
also
my
a
screen?
Scott B. Carroll, who is another biologist. There's a Robert Carroll, who is a paleontologist. So things can get awfully awkward. Abiogenesis and endosymbiosis. Yeah, we mustn't forget endosymbiosis.
Yeah, that was our.
Yeah, so-
What'd you say?
That's probably 3/4 of why we're what we are is due to stuff that's kicking off as endosymbiotic processes.
Probably.
Like when two prokaryotes decide to work together instead of against each other.
Oh,
May have
I
even
would
been 3.
like with the one of the
Ménage de
figures.
trois.
One of the figures just cuts off at the bottom, I think, or at least to me.
Which
Like,
one?
the right one, the creationist idea of
Yeah,
Can you see
abiogenesis,
it?
and then it cuts off. Then it cuts
We got
off.
hypercycles and protobionts, and
and then it cuts
something.
off.
It
Yeah.
cuts off? Huh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I can see it on
Yeah.
mine. Well, it says bacteria at the very bottom.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw this chart and I was looking for good thumbnails.
If I do it like that, can you see it?
yeah,
You can see the bottom?
yeah.
These
Yeah.
fancy kids and their spreadsheet and their PowerPoints.
Well, I like that picture. I think it's very funny because it's very true. They don't. If you ever talk to creationists about abiogenesis, it's just
Yeah.
how did the chemicals
didn't-
self-assemble into a bacteria? Well,
Yeah, they are literally imagining that you have to have everything all at once, but that's not necessarily the case. Like you can have a process where things
that
are
second-
building up step by step.
That second slide with the chronology is very relevant, even though it's cut off at the bottom. The dates on there are extremely relevant in terms of the late heavy bombardment, and that constrains the time window of whatever is going on.
Late bombardment. Was that like when that Thea planet crashed into us?
no, that was later.
Part of it, actually, that would be so catastrophic that there's not going to be any life going on in there. No, it's the late heavy bombardment that's basically assembling the planet, and it has to drop down to the point where you can start having oceans forming, that land masses are crinkling in and stabilizing. That window is still, I think, basically the geologists have to do a modeling on it because.
Oh, check. RJ?
Is RJ still there?
You cut off.
Well,
I like the late heavy bombardment was like a period of increased bolide impacts, like shortly after the Earth was formed, between as it says between 4 and 3.8 billion years ago.
you should have dates to not remember.
Yeah.
Well, these dates kind of wiggle a little bit over
There's
time.
also an interesting thing to note. I have seen that one of the proposed causes of the late heavy bombardment is Neptune and Uranus. Yes, Uranus switched places in their orbits. Yeah, they switched places in orbits, and that switched caused like a very disturbance in the force.
Sure,
Which,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that play like that destabilized a lot of orbits from the outer like the outer ring of asteroids and maybe even comets, and that caused the late heavy bombardment.
That's really interesting. I had
Yeah.
never heard of that. But that's really cool. Yeah.
I think the switch between the Neptune and Uranus is pretty agreed by like the people who study the planetary orbits, but the link between that and the late heavy bombardment is still contentious. I think it's an interesting hypothesis to link them as a causal relationship.
Sure.
Okay, so
yeah.
so on this chart here, one's straight to the point, other one's happens in steps.
Well, I mean, it's more like you have the creationist idea of what happens, and then the other side is, well, it would have been a lot more complicated, involved a lot more steps, and good luck getting creationists to talk about chemistry. Honestly, I really am not a fan of. I'm not a fan of geochemistry or biochemistry. I think they're interesting, but they're not anything I would ever want to do. So
not your field of expertise.
We
Nope.
can't rule out the possibility that some of the very early endosymbiont components are of lineages that are otherwise completely extinct. And that makes it really hard to work it out. We're only looking at the domains of life that we can see still surviving, the ones that were the big winners.
Yeah.
Right. So the Earth formed, and the early Earth, and the old idea that the atmosphere was entirely reducing has been largely shredded by more recent geochemical evidence, such as oxidized cerium in magma dating to like 4 billion years old. And so now the idea is more that, as you can see in the little chart down here in the bottom, you had higher levels of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and nitrogen, but and methane also, and ammonia. But it wasn't all methane and ammonia and water vapor as originally.
Although even Miller and Urey were aware of the changing constituents in the atmosphere at the time.
Correct.
And all of the origin of life researchers have paid really close attention to that. So when they're using atmospheric mixes, they're basing them on what we can ascertain as were the realistic ones, the ones that you really get creationists digging in on. They just really insist that there was lots of oxygen around. And even in any of the models, no, you just didn't have a lot of free oxygen.
No, definitely not.
Not at least dioxygen, like the oxygen gas, like O2.
Right.
That wasn't very abundant. For obvious reasons, because oxygen tends to react very quickly. But and oxidizes everything. Like you get iron oxide, and you get all the O2s behind.
Isn't that how our first mass extinction happened, when oxygen came around and the animal life?
Well, we don't know if that was actually the first extinction.
Yeah,
but
true.
Wasn't there actually a point when like the parts of the mantle overturned? So wouldn't that have been an extinction also?
Yeah,
that's true.
Put it into perspective. Let's be conservative and say that the early stages from the ending of the late heavy bombardment to the first arrival of Luca is 100 million years. Well, that's longer than the time since the extinction of the dinosaurs. That's a big window.
Yeah, exactly. So
also, I have seen that they have simulated the late heavy bombardment, and they say that even that was enough to sterilize the entire Earth. Like there were still places where life could have survived during the late heavy bombardment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you get anything large and any bolides large enough, they're going to. They're gonna completely.
Remember,
whack
you've got a
everything.
very different dynamic. A lot of the things that happen with impact events are shutting off the act.
No, there he goes again. Sure.
There he goes again.
Shutting off the Find
Shut
out
you
next time.
Yeah.
Cliffhanger. Find out tomorrow.
Next week on the show. In the chat, Speed of Sound says, I think there's an endosymbiotic theory of ribosomes. I don't think so. Ribosomes are based on RNA.
Yeah.
I don't think that they were their own organisms at any point in time.
Like ribosomes are the like one the like not the only one thing, but the thing that screams RNA world. Really,
Yeah.
like at least an RNA stage for life. Like
Right.
It's interesting. Like I have read some papers that shows that the ribosome contains sequences for all 20 tRNAs, like the transfer RNAs.
Really?
Yeah, and also contains the sequence for the ancestral. How do you call it again? The protein that connects the amino acid with the tRNAs, like the acetyl transferase. I don't know the full name. So it basically says that the ribosome is a vestigial genome of an RNA organism, which is really amazing when you think about it. Like it's the original genome basically that it is now solely functions as a translation machine.
Like, you make that picture bigger again to see if it focused off at the bottom.
Okay. How does it look?
It's a lot better than the last one did.
Okay.
I'm back.
Welcome back, Arja. So
at least the machine self recovers. I don't have to go through any rigmarole on it. It takes care of all that automatically.
There you go. One of the interesting consequences of there being substantially more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is that it would have dissolved in the ocean in higher quantities, which means that according to Nick Lane and a couple of others, the ocean would have had a pH of about 6, so it would have been slightly acidic, whereas today it's about a pH of 8.
Oh, so live from Salsa water.
I suppose. So, and this is where we kind of come to the important part. Where would life have gotten started on Earth? And as I was reading today, actually, I found out that the existence of hydrothermal vents was predicted by Michael Russell, who's one of the origin of life researchers, 7 years before they were discovered. You can see it says membrane vesicles were inflated with alkaline sulfide-bearing hydrothermal solution and grew in a submarine sulfide mound in acid iron-bearing Hadine seawater, which, of course, if you go to alkaline hydrothermal vents, they have iron, sulfur, or sulfides, and nickel in their walls, and, of course, they spew alkaline water. So their existence... So here's a prediction of abiogenesis that was fulfilled.
So are these things like little mini you I forget what it's called now in old Yosemite. Old Faithful. These like little mini Old Faithfuls underwater.
Well, it is an underwater volcano. It's not the same kind, but
It's not a volcano. I think not volcano either. Like it's something...
No, this isn't. It's not spewing lava. Lava's not coming out of this. This is superheated seawater, which is basically seeping down.
Not even superheated either. It's like it's a relatively.
Well, it's pretty hot. I wouldn't want to put my hand in it.
Yeah, it's like
relative to the black
500
smokers.
degrees. It's frisky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not lava. This is just heated seawater or alkaline heated seawater.
The fact that it's occurring in a pressure environment at depth is another variable that's hard to replicate in your laboratory settings. I mean, you're going to get like 100 atmospheres.
Right.
Until we get the underwater laboratories.
I mean, like in the Meg, let's set one of those up. Oh, what a terrible movie.
Oh,
Anyway.
And
no.
another thing I really want to call attention to, it's important. 100% of this work is done by non-creationists. They have
Exactly.
contributed absolutely zip to any of our understanding. Every factoid that every creationist tosses at you is culled from the genuine scientific literature, none of which are creationists.
That is correct.
They would have made the same arguments like 50 years ago, basically. Of course, then of course 50 years ago we didn't know much or as much as we do now about life, and so they have now more things to say. Oh, how complex, how nifty things
Yeah.
are. So that's the only difference that they.
I called that the gee whiz argument.
Yeah. Oh, gee whiz.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's very interesting that the same molecules, iron sulfides, that catalyzed chemical reactions along hydrothermal vents also catalyze reactions in our mitochondria.
Yeah.
Yep.
They move they shuttle electrons across the inner mitochondrial membrane, which generates the potential needed to
And mitochondria, that's the thing. That's
do the electron transport chain.
That's the part of our cells that can use oxygen, right?
Yeah, they use.
Although the ability to utilize oxygen came much later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting.
It really took easily 500 million years, I think, for organisms to kind of adapt ion channels and things to take advantage of that nasty, corrosive, dangerous oxygen stuff.
Yeah.
And but once they figured that out, then they just went hog wild with it, because oxygen is such a dynamic catalyst to work with that eventually they became a lot of the dominant organisms there.
Yeah.
Another factor in origin of life research is what elements are being brought in. For many years, there was a brick wall on some of the constituents that they could never figure out how they were generated abiotically until Sutherland and their bunch put phosphorus into their mixtures and found ways of adding that in. Suddenly there was stuff that were generated just like that had been a really big problem. I think uracil and some of these other things were just generally created from them. And so this is work that's been done in the last like 4 or 5 years. John Sutherland, if you want to catch up on a lot of the material and his various papers, I'm sure you Google him and that would help a lot. Ooh, new chart.
Making organic molecules.
So, as we were talking about earlier, the easy part probably is generating organic molecules. So, with increased carbon dioxide dissolving in the ocean, so you have a source of carbon, and then your source of oxygen and hydrogen, form of dihydrogen and hydroxide, and these are coming up through the alkaline hydrothermal vents, and they're interacting with the slightly acidic seawater, and this produces various very simple organic molecules such as formaldehyde, acetate, and a few others.
And the beginning of a citric acid cycle, or at least reverse citric acid cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. In fact, that's probably the earliest metabolism.
Didn't lead anywhere.
Yeah.
But
something like this gives very strong credence to the metabolism first view of the origins of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, remember, we know formaldehyde jumps right out at me because that's something that we know is formed abiotically because it's found in meteorites and in interstellar environments and a whole bunch of stuff.
Actually, the paper, or I don't remember. No, I think I did. The Lane 2010 paper, I didn't quote it in here, but I could have. There's a section in it where it talks about that some of that formaldehyde and acetate and a few other molecules have been found formed directly from these vents. So
watch out when Googling formaldehyde, though, you might end up finding an Abbott and Costello routine. Watch it anyway.
Speaking of, I almost forgot to ask at the beginning of this. Where did that term abiogenesis come from?
It's probably Greek
Good
or
question.
Latin.
I'm not sure when it came in. The old term
I-
came, biogenesis issue was the word that was used back in Pasteur's day about
Yeah.
the idea that if you just put a big pile of mud out there, you could have worms growing out of it naturally, which they pretty well
Didn't
obliterated.
Huxley coin the term? Huxley, I think, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Anyway,
it's-
I didn't see it start being really prominent probably in the 1970s on, but somebody can check up on that to see whether or not that then became
It's
the term precisely to distinguish it from the biogenesis issue.
it's funny that creationists are always talking about the law of biogenesis, which isn't actually a law. But the term biogenesis is used, especially in cell biology, when you're talking about how organelles are made, like the Golgi apparatus and peroxisomes and things like that. But no one working in the field calls it the law of biogenesis because it's not a law. It's just an observation.
Well, I think that's a spin-off from the creationist obsession with thermodynamics, which are the old style laws, and this mathematics physics envy that you find in an awful lot of creationist literature, that if you can't render it as a mathematical formula, it isn't quite real now, is it?
Well, I mean, the thing is, even the so-called the Mendelian laws can be broken.
Yeah.
The thing about laws is that they aren't broken.
Let's say they're suggested guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. In biology,
Yeah.
there are pretty much no laws. Everything works largely, or the laws work largely, but they're not perfect.
Yeah.
Kind of like in that pirate movie. These aren't rules; they're guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
another one.
In fact, a little bit of history alert here. When Mendel did his pea research, he was kind of a lucky duck in picking peas, because it turns out that the strains he was working in really did fall into those things very nicely. But there are a lot of plants and organisms that if he tried to do the same experiments on, it wouldn't have seen such nice, neat balances as he did with the peas.
Yeah, there's one other alleged law, and it's like the law of irreversibility or something like that.
Oh, Dolo's law.
Which technically it could be reversed if you have like a point mutation. Theoretically, it could be reversed in the next generation. So
yeah, imagine if Mendel used slow-growing plants like apples or oranges instead of fast-growing plants like peas and stuff,
or something like something that where there were lots of genes involved, like corn.
Another
where
side note,
you have transposons.
Mendel certainly knew about Darwin, and there's indications from his later writings that he was incorporating Darwinian ideas in. So anybody who tries to invoke Mendel somehow being on the anti-evolution side, it's a risky argument.
Exactly. Okay. So next,
Those are nice slides there, Jackson.
Do what?
Those are nice slides. I like what you pulled together.
Oh, thank you. So the origin of Darwinian evolution. So, there are different. We were kind of talking about how there are different macromolecules. There are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, and all of these probably had, I mean, they're all organic molecules, but they probably had different pathways by which they went from very simple precursors to more complex forms. There are like precursors to amino acids, like the aminonitriles, and there are precursors to lipids and things like that. And so I mentioned here the thing about the reactions could have occurred on Mars and been transferred. And I wanted to bring that up because I didn't know if I would mention it to you guys earlier, but there it is again. So ribose has been formed under prebiotic conditions in various experiments. You can form nucleotides under various prebiotic experiments. It turns out the mineral borate can stabilize ribose mixture, prevent it from becoming tar. As we said earlier, RNA may not have been first. It may have been an intermediate step in the evolution of life. But it was pretty early on. It certainly preceded DNA.
Yeah.
So
And I'm particularly drawn to that last one. Perhaps there were originally multiple genetic systems competing with each other. If you think about hydrothermal vents, which are operating at depth, benthic, as they would use the fancy term, and then you've got gradations and layers of water pressure as you're moving up towards the surface of the ocean, and how much water there was at that time. You may still have had bombarding material coming in the tailing off of the late heavy bombardment that would have been insufficient to vaporize the oceans, but yet would have been churning up stuff and bringing in organic materials.
Yeah.
So you may have had micro ecosystems of early life that involve 2, 3, 4, 5 different systems, some of which have membranes, some of which don't. Some of them are using PNA, some of them are using RNA, DNA hybrids, and all of them working around, churning in an ecosystem spread around the entire planet. That's an awful lot of experiments going on.
Yeah, and isn't like I've heard crazies argue this too about how this can happen. Wasn't it the same thing as life? Like whatever they're in the natural selection, let the best one survive and let the other ones die off. Even if
the section in or when they're talking about the origin of life in the Ward and Kirschvink book, they say that the change from like bubbling prebiotic protobionts to fully fledged cells would have taken very little time. You know, natural selection would have in just a few generations transformed the protobionts into fully fledged organisms. Again, I don't know if I agree with that, but I think it's interesting.
There's a certain logic to argue, and oh gosh, Wallace, I think, not Alfred Wallace, but another Wallace, has also taken this view on the metabolism first argument, that once a replicator gets going, if it's on its own, it's going to eat itself out of house and home. So there needed to be a dynamic system of components being generated that can exist along with the replicator. And that's another issue. There may have been early first stabs at things. What we haven't brought up yet is the error catastrophe issue and in replicators things. And I don't know whether or not you had that in some of the later points that you were going to bring up, Jackson.
I did forget that and viruses where they fit into the phylogeny of life. I forgot about
but RJ, didn't that first replicator need someone to marry and have kids with?
Oh yeah, all of them have to form because sex has to appear right off the bat. Yeah. Anyway, the error replication issue, and there's a whole subgenre of people that pay attention to this, is once you get a replicator, how accurate does it need to be in making a replication for it to exceed the dynamics of it? But if you have think of just the alphabet A through Z, and you need to have most of that alphabet to replicate. If you start mutating it, how much can it mutate and where it crashes? So that's the error catastrophe issue. And so there is a dynamic as to how vague and squishy the mutation rate can be, or how much it needs to be limited in order to keep it from crashing. And it's still an ongoing issue, but it looks like that all the selection pressure that eventually acted on the RNA DNA system is designed to keep it within a boundary so that it doesn't exceed the error catastrophe issues. In other words, if something mutates too quickly, it's going to get out of control. Cancers are like that. That's why you don't want cells to be immortal, because it can just pile up gunk. So it's a yin-yang balancing act. And the interesting issue that we can't tell with the fossil evidence is how many different competing systems there were, and was there the one that had the most congenial error catastrophe adaptations, the one that eventually ended up as Luca?
Exactly. I was going to say
these.
Yeah, there. So this was something that I read recently in the Ward and Kirschvink book, was that I really wasn't too familiar with the evolution of photosynthesis, but one thing that's very interesting is at the point where oxygen had piled up in the atmosphere such that it was rusting iron, which was about 2.2 billion years ago. Immediately preceding that, a few million years,
From manganese layers.
is a layer of manganese. Now, what is the
Ooh, that's
element?
neat.
Now, what is the element that that cyanobacteria use in their photosystems?
Hmm.
Manganese.
Ooh.
So these guys were whatever these pre-cyanobacteria, whoever was doing this version of photosynthesis, not oxidative photosynthesis,
Mhm.
was using manganese, and this was a sort of transitional step on the road to oxidative photosynthesis.
Another training wheel system.
Exactly, and this time we actually have something like fossil evidence of it.
Yeah, so we know there was an ecosystem that's going on that isn't going on now, but is producing something really significant as an intermediate stage. Another, remember, when we're talking about the banded irons, we're talking about most of the iron deposits on the planet.
Mm.
All made when the cyanobacteria came along and started spewing out this terrible pollutant oxygen, which started rusting the oceans and taking the iron that was very common in the oceans until then and rusting them out as these vast red bands in the geological record.
Yeah, I was totally unaware of this manganese layer, but
I wasn't aware of it either. Yeah, this is neat.
It makes perfect sense when put into the context of where it is geologically in the record and what immediately follows it.
The reason why manganese pops up, isn't manganese playing a part in moralite, which is that clay stuff that's in some origin of life research? Would you know anything about that?
Montmorillonite? It may be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
That'd be something to keep an eyeball on. Now, by the way, anybody watching this show can compare the level of discussion that we have with virtually any creationist criticism of abiogenesis and see which one of us has gotten farther into the technical details than the other.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of difference. Nestle, were you aware of the manganese layer?
No, but I was aware about the link between manganese and photosynthesis, but not about this. No.
Okay. Well. Okay, so that kind of brings us to endosymbiosis. So we have eukaryotes, which originated somewhere between 2 billion and 1.8 billion years ago. This occurred when an archaean consumed and entered an obligate symbiotic relationship with a bacterium. Although, I've also seen some people argue that it was a bacterium which consumed an archaean and then also the mitochondrion. Have you guys seen that?
I heard several different things. Like,
oh yeah, the nucleus is also an endosymbiont, but
yeah,
I don't see.
That's
I don't
what
see it. Yeah, but I don't see it.
Or maybe it's the other way. It was the archaean who consumed the bacterium, which became the nucleus, and then the other one, which became the mitochondria.
Because I heard I forget where I heard from. I heard our nucleus is more in common with archaean.
Well, actually, our the is it glycerol? What's the molecule that forms up the? Is it glycerol? Nestle, do you guys remember? Because it's like it's left-handed in one and it's right-handed in the other, in either archaeans or bacteria, and it's left-handed in the other one. And which is why
I can't remember. I can't remember the details of the difference between the lipids.
Well,
but it's something like that. Yeah.
But the point is, our cell membrane has the version that archaeans have, but the nucleus has the version that bacteria have, which is why some have suggested maybe the nucleus was a bacterium that was engulfed, that was a separate bacterium that was engulfed. I think
so we did it 3 times then. First we
no, I don't think so. I think
plants did 3 times. First if that's true, then we did the nucleus one, then we did the mitochondria one. Then like we'll do one better. We'll get cyanobacteria working for us with us.
Well, I think I actually agree with Nick Lane that probably the nucleus is a response to the mitochondria, because the mitochondria would have been spewing things like capsaicins and other apoptotic chemicals, which it still does today. That's I believe some of the genes needed for apoptosis are in the mitochondria. But while it was doing but there was that, and also the fact that it needed that while the mitochondria and the archaean were kind of combining their genomes, or large portions of their genomes, the archaean cell would have needed space to separate transcription and translation. So if you have because transcription is it transcription is fast while translation is slow, or it's the other way around? But regardless, if you have a space where you can do one of these processes, and then you have a separate space where you can do the other one, that puts less stress on your organism. And so I think that's probably why.
No, I think translation is fast. I think.
Okay, maybe it's translation is fast and transcription is slow. It was one of those.
Yeah,
but
so like without the nucleus separating the two processes, then translation would happen too quickly before you can remove the introns.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Once it has an edited copy
having...
that it can build off of, it just goes like gangbusters, plugging the amino acids in.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the reason. I don't think it's that the nucleus was a like a methanogen or whatever. So anyway, or not a methanogen, like mixotrophic or whatever. But anyways, so there are a couple different lines of evidence indicating that mitochondria are actually derived from bacterium. For instance, they have their cell membrane is more like that of bacteria. They are affected by bactericidal medicines and antibiotics, whereas the rest of the cell isn't.
Which is why you often get a little tired when you're taking antibiotics, because it affects your mitochondria, like the ability to produce energy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a little later on down the road, the ancestor of plants acquired chloroplasts, like Vandalia was saying. It's funny, you did mention 3 times. There are actually cases in which there have been sort of endosymbiotic events within endosymbiotic events within endosymbiotic events, because there are instances where protists have engulfed red algae, like dinoflagellates. So you've got
sometimes also green algae, even.
Right. Yeah, like the chlorarachniophytes and the cryptomonads, I think. And so you've got this protist with the red algae, with the mitochondria and chloroplast. So
we really are on the boring side of the eukaryote family tree, because we only have mitochondria, nothing else.
We have to make our own. We have to eat our own food. We can't make it by the sunlight, fluffy plants.
Right, which is why I have a picture of this coral down here with these dinoflagellates. So it's a coral which has an endosymbiotic relationship with dinoflagellates, which has an endosymbiotic relationship with rhodophyte, which has the mitochondria and chloroplast. So it's turtles all the way down, right?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Of course, creationists would say something like that. Oh, it's irreducibly complex. You can't have one without the other. Yeah, it's of course you can. Like some are living on their own without the other. So symbiosis can be symbiotic relationships can very easily evolve when you allow for first relationship is facultative. It isn't necessary, but then later it becomes necessary when they become specialized for this relationship.
So what's kleptopastry?
Kleptoplasty. So this is when organisms steal plastids from others. And so in this case, we have Elysia chlorotica. It looks like a leaf. This is actually a slug. So this is a mollusk.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it too, yeah.
And it is eating algae, Vaucheria latoria. But what it does is it steals the chloroplasts and uses them for its own before they inevitably break down.
Yeah.
So this is. Oh, go ahead.
I often see or at least a while back I was in a conversation with the creationist about like taxonomy, like how taxonomy supports common ancestry, and I was like for example, you have like, why don't you see chimeras like for example the Pegasus, or maybe even a mix between animals and plants? And of course, when you say something like that, they will bring up examples like this, where you have an animal that can photosynthesize. But of course, when you look deeper, it's actually not. They did not inherit this ability. They are stealing this ability from by eating photosynthetic organisms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The alleged plant-animal cross is really just an animal who is stealing from plants.
It's far from being a Bulbasaur.
Right. Yeah. Although it is very interesting. I do also. I think it's funny that what you just said reminded me of Long Story Short, when he said the platypus was a chimera.
Yeah.
I was unfortunately reminded of that.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
but yeah,
go ahead. He hasn't still. I don't think he has like admitted like, oh, sorry, it's not the camera, right? Maybe.
No, he never did.
Yes. No.
Well, what did he say? He said, "Oh, well, if the homology homology was superficial, then you have to admit all homology is superficial," which was completely missing the point of what we were.
Yeah.
He can only consistently miss the point of everything that we say. I don't think he has ever like just said, you know what, you were right, I was wrong on this point, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever said that.
No. Or the only thing he does is like omit the point entirely. Like you like in his latest videos, response videos, you can see that he has
12 minutes.
He has dropped many points that we addressed before, like without any mention of them. Like, okay, those points are just gone. Apparently.
Yeah, you said he skipped the first 12 minutes of our video, right?
Yeah.
The fact that
you know the paper when he mentioned about Indo-Hyas, that's completely gone. Like no mention of that anymore. No,
can we count that as a concession then?
Yeah,
I
think so.
Might as well.
Hey, welcome back.
I love Brainbug's comment.
What do you say?
You get 8 months for stealing chloroplasts.
What are they? Oh, get 8 months for stealing chloroplasts. Yeah, Elysia is not the only one. There are actually several. There's like there's at least several of these slugs that steal chloroplasts. I don't know if they're a monophyletic group or this has evolved independently. I don't remember. But yeah, taking protists and chloroplasts in is not too uncommon among animals, especially more, like corals do it. These slugs do it. There was like a salamander, I believe, where the eggs have algae in them. Have you guys seen that?
No. Although all of this is really useful because it gives us an analogy of what may have been going on in that first few 100 million years before Luca. As you have systems that are stealing pieces of things, not necessarily whole organisms.
Yeah, I've also seen like one proposal of the transition from RNA to DNA. Like some propose that this transition was mediated by viruses. Like you have a DNA virus, and that forced this transition. Although the details, I don't remember the details, but there are papers about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be argued.
Oh,
fair point, RJ.
Apparently, we got a link in the thing about a paper.
Very profound. Very profound.
Oh, so I can stop.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I went.
Speaking of Endosymbiosis and I can't talk. And eukaryotes. Is there scientific major? I don't know, are we like? Have we decided? Are we like a branch off from the Archaeans or within the Archaeans?
We nest with Archaea is evidently now paraphyletic with regard to eukaryotes. The old you have basically two hypotheses. You had what is it? The WOS 3 domains where you had bacteria, archaea, and eukarya, and Euryarchaeota nests with TAC and DPAN. They're all together in one domain. But you also have the lake hypothesis, which is also known as the eocide hypothesis, where archaea is paraphyletic to eukaryotes. You basically have bacteria, they're on their own. Then you have Euryarchaeota, which is most of them. Then a little bit closer, you have this group called DPAN. That's their acronym. It's like a bunch of different groups. Then you have TAC, which is another TACK. That's another acronym. Then you have the Asgard superphylum, which are like Lokiarchaeota and Thorarchaeota and Heimdallarchaeota. These guys, which are very eukaryote-like in some of their systems, but they're Archaeans. They're not eukaryotes, and so they're really just outside of eukarya. They're an interesting little group. We're just beginning to figure out stuff about them. RJ, we were talking about the Asgard superphylum of Archaea.
Yeah, that there's brand new work on those, and it's basically upending a lot of the deep phyletic arguments that are going on. It also reminds us there may still be really interesting little groups. Those manganese-eating organisms produce manganese nodules to this day in deep ocean conditions. And so how many other organisms are out there? Like we filtered every part of the ocean and we know every single bacterial structure in every single thing on the planet? Hell no. So each one of those expands our understanding, and it reminds us of the diversity that would have been going on early in the history of life, independent of what ended up as Luca.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe that missing quote link that we need is that we've definitely found on Venus.
Yeah, that although I'm not holding my breath on that, it would be gobsmackingly amazing if we ended up that there was in fact an aerial organism living in the atmospheres of Venus in the a cold weather zone somewhere in there, because the atmosphere of Venus is tremendously hot. The pressures are really terrible. It's a hellhole. And so the idea that there might be some bacterial forms that were existing in a Goldilocks zone somewhere in its atmosphere would be one of the great discoveries of science. I'm not holding my breath on that, though.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the tweet I sent earlier that maybe if it is a live thing, maybe it's either like a totally different organism we have here, or we're connected somehow.
Yeah, it would be amazing, because one thing that we haven't really delved into is there a possibility of other biologies. Can you build organisms that don't use DNA at all, that are entirely RNA, or ones that are DNA but don't use RNA at all, or ones that use different amino acid associations, or ones that make use of DNA or completely different ribose structures? Can you make a silicon-based organism or not? I mean, we don't know. I have my doubts. I'm of the type that thinks that the reason why we have DNA RNA systems is because that's the system that works. It's durable. It's hard to deviate, hard to screw it up. It can work very efficiently over long periods of time, but we don't know to be sure.
Well, one counter argument to that could be pointing out that there are researchers that have extended the base pairs of DNA, that they added an X and a Y base pair, I think. So perhaps it's possible to have a different base pair
Yeah, and ones in which you have
for DNA.
floating base pairs to where you have both duplex, triplex, and quadruplex amino acid associations going on, that some are used for certain things and some are others. You can produce very efficient DNA codes that way. There's been some modeling on that. And whether or not any of that's workably possible or not, or just as an extreme thing, the Andromeda strain, which was a crystal-based organism, the science fiction movie, is it possible? So all of these things are nice ways of investigating the limits of what's possible or not. I would love it if I can live to the point of where we can be sending probes to Europa to find out whether there's anything alive at all there, whether there's anything alive now or once was on Mars. Send geologists and others there. And it would be fabulously interesting to discover if other life exists, and if so, does it deviate in substantial ways from the living organism systems that we have with our examples. Whatever that answer is going to be fabulous and incredibly informative.
So like one of the big clues that we again derive is by comparing different life forms with each other. Like we can piece together a lot of things from like comparing modern life, like what they have in common, and reconstruct the common ancestor, for example. And that is also a bit of a clue of how life could have originated. But if we could compare independent life forms, then we can perhaps even deduce some universal quote-unquote laws.
Yes, you could get some
life.
Laws of biogenesis then. Yeah. And it's hard to make generalizations from one example.
Yeah. Exactly. Also, I want to say something about the like we are like eukaryotes are nested within archaea. Like, well, that is true with respect for the host cell, like the host cell for the mitochondria. Like that is descended from archaea. At this point, that is really not controversial anymore. Like now, like it used to be 3 domains, but now it seems like it's now 2 domains. Like, but of course we still have inherited a lot of DNA from bacteria via our endosymbiosis. So it's actually the case that even though perhaps a long story short, we'd be happy to hear that. So it actually is the case that eukaryotes are actually true chimeras between bacteria and archaea. They are not one or the other. They are both and neither, basically.
Well,
exactly. Everything is everything. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it might still be 2 or 3 domains depending on where we put virus, how many domains viruses have.
Oh, well, actually, that was something I didn't put in there, but I should have. It turns out viruses are polyphyletic.
Yeah.
So there were some that probably stem from the prebiotic materials, and others that are like derived from different bacteria or different archaeans. So,
well, there's RNA viruses, there's DNA viruses.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're not one single group. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. Like I don't know if you watch PBS Eons. Like they describe, they describe viruses as like vines growing on the tree of life, how do you describe it? Like those parasitic plants that grow on trees. Like the analogy of the tree of life, and you have like these vines that grow out on the side and intertwining it. And that's basically viruses. They grow on the tree of life like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also a lot of, and also still they are still alive in your genome as well. Like we have lots of viral DNA in our genome.
Indeed, we do. So, like 6% of our genome is endogenous retroviruses. So,
like cue the Lion King song. He lives in you.
10% of it's just ALU.
Yeah.
The circle of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the 2 things I think we could agree on. One is if there was any time in the last couple thousand years that you would want to be alive and to be able to see this research being done, we're in it. And the other point is that whatever discoveries that are being made within our lifetimes none of them will have come from creationists.
Indeed.
Okay, this is a question. Like, is any creationist doing novel research? Like, I think the only one is
No.
like Todd Wood, like for example, with his like trying to construct baromints, right? Like he published some papers on that, right?
They do
Todd
technical
Wood.
work,
I mean,
but it's basically shuffling the deck chairs around on the Titanic. It's trying to resolve the data field that's coming in that they didn't pay attention to before, and it's really bad. But in terms of actually innovative research, since their model isn't right, they really can't make really innovatively predictive predictions. They can just simply say, well, we can explain the stuff you've already explained just as well if we just leave this part out.
Well, it was Todd Wood, right? Like somebody else like took a paper of baronology and applied it to like birds and dinosaurs and showed that the Archaeopteryx is the same kind as
that was Phil
dinosaurs.
Center.
Oh, Phil,
That was Phil Center.
but the creationist, I think it was Todd Wood, right? Todd Wood was the creationist.
The only one
Todd Wood and Kurt Wise and David Kavanaugh. Yeah.
The only ones I can think of offhand that could be thought of as doing kind of actual research from their model aren't in the young Earth creationist camp. They're Ann Gager and Douglas Axe doing their kinds of, we're trying to disprove protein acquisitions and things like that. And some of their stuff could be considered kind of fundamental research from their model point of view. They do a lot of deck stacking too. But the ones that have got the degrees, Jackson and that knows that, Purdom and all the rest, good Lord, this is bad research.
How come everyone's doing the deck chairs on the Titanic? How come no one's ever doing the deck chairs on the Hindenburg?
There were no deck chairs on the Hindenburg. So you didn't really have that issue involved. It was a much more constrained space. There were really the only freestanding chairs in Titanic really were in the dining room lounge area, and you've only got like 100 passengers, so it's not as good of an analogy. Plus, more people know about Glub Glub Titanic than they do about the details of and it's gone Hindenburg.
Icebergs can't bend steel beams.
True, but of course,
the analogy you would want would be somebody who's selling cigarette lighters on the Hindenburg.
Oh, I think I remember that one more because we actually it was actually got on video or a radio at least. The Hindenburg was on video crashing.
The amazing thing about the Hindenburg is that most of the people on board it survived. That the hydrogen burns so intensely that although it had a high loss of life, it wasn't. Most of the people on board managed to survive it because they could just wait until the compartments got close to the ground. You jump down and run to try to avoid the burning debris. Whereas other disasters had much higher proportions of death on them, especially like the Lusitania that went down like a rock in 1915.
The thing that started the thing that got us in the World War One.
Although there were a lot of gas attacks, the major cause of death in World War One was artillery fire. That was the first war where that was the primary agent of destruction, was artillery barrages.
No, I meant that got us, America.
Hey, what's that up in the air?
In the war.
It's not going to hit us.
No, that's not. We don't have to worry about that.
Like, oh, you mean guns can shoot further than 50 feet now? Oh, crap.
If you could stand slightly to the left, I'm going to shoot that way, and I need to stand over there so I can hit you.
Well, our dear Vandalia, did you find our discussion informative?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one area that every one of us that tries to kind of keep our fingers on the incoming work in biogenesis research is just gobsmacked by how much work there's doing now. I think it's probably gone up by an order of magnitude from what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's always nice to learn new things. But I have someone who wants to come in and talk. guy with the
It's also neat shit.
yeah. Wait till he comes in. He wants to say something. All right. Link sent. Link has been sent.
I'd like to thank Jackson for his very nice.
Presentation.
Very nice.
Oh.
What? Very nice. What? We'll never
Yeah.
know. What was it RJ was about to say?
Hello.
Tragedy.
Huh.
Is there still a contest at the Bones happening this week?
Oh, on RJ's channel, I would imagine so. I actually have work again on Wednesday, unfortunately.
Maybe I can join.
Yeah, you should.
for the
You
time.
definitely should.
Yeah. Like I have now the entire week, the entire house for myself. So of course it's now midnight. Normally I cannot do this because it will be very annoying for my parents sleeping next to me.
Right.
The other, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm usually real tired. This was like one of the times I was actually off. Not normally off on Monday, so here I am.
Everything is kind of up in the air. What the hell's going on for about everybody? And
Yeah.
fires here, and COVID to worry about, and economy, and everything else, and schoolwork, and work, and all the other layers. Everybody just calm and chill out.
At least the murder hornets were a thing.
Yeah,
You know
they're
what's
over.
funny?
Although they are in Washington State, but on the wet side of the state, up in Bellingham. So there's no sign of them yet on my area.
The whole thing about the murder hornets got our wasp evolution video a whole bunch of views.
And rightly so. Yeah. I mean, look what
YouTube
you did for whale
algorithm.
sex,
Ooh.
Jackson.
Sorry.
Well, really, weren't they more of a danger to bees than to us? The murder hornets?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're a honey fan, then I guess they're a threat to you. But
Well, honeybees are invasive,
Killer
so
bees. I mean,
they're not
still,
native.
They're still a problem, but they don't adapt to cold weather. So we've been free of them up in this neck of the woods. But down in Tucson and places like that, they've still got them.
Can we get them on each other? Have the murder hornets get rid of the killer bees for us?
Yeah, let's see what could go wrong on that. You know, this is although it would make a nice the murder hornets versus the killer bees. This is like Predator versus Alien.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see. You can even look it up on YouTube. I think like the native bees who are who are living on who are living alongside the killer wasp.
Yeah,
They defend themselves against these wasps by basically cooking them alive. Like they surround the wasp and they overheat them. And they overheat them. Yes. So, but of course, other bees, like in other regions where they are native, the bees don't have this behavior, so they are defenseless against these wasps.
Yeah. We have a guest now. Introduce yourself.
Hey, Speed of Sound.
Welcome.
We have had, Dimitar Kunev, who is a geneticist. He's done a lot of stuff in cancer research and going to be going into stem cell research, but he has 3 papers on abiogenesis, and he has a new hypothesis. He did about a 2-hour hangout with us about a month or 2 ago, and he did. He's been on. He has been trying to crack the Otangelo.
That's an impenetrable barrier,
right? Yeah. Anyway, so we have 2 hours of material on there that I'm going to download and put on my channel, and then he did. We just did another 2-hour hangout with him yesterday, private, which we're going to try to edit. But anyway, he has a theory of basically that Darwinian selection started like very, very early in the very, very small strands of RNA combined with stabilizing peptides that like very small peptides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amino acid peptides that stabilize the RNA. And he has a selection mechanism worked out where he shows how information is created very early on. And he's a very, very detailed man, very intelligent. And he's been, I've read his papers once. Now I have his third paper, which I can't share, but it's going to be published in January, I think. On that kind of sums it all up. But anyway, watching that channel or watching our stuff with him and going through some of that, and then in the future, he's going to work in October, so he's going to be as available to us. But in the future, we're going to go over it and try to make it digestible for everybody down to the layman, because this is an incredible theory. It's a peptide RNA world theory, and he has the most wonderful low-level approach to this thing, showing you the chemistry and everything. And so anyway, I just wanted to pitch that because I'm very excited about it. It's probably the best science I've seen on YouTube in a long time. So
well, it'll certainly be interesting to see how the other researchers in the field make use of it or not, to see how the back and forths on it. It was just fascinating to watch Grasso just turn into deer in the headlight on all of the technical issues that were brought up. Holy moly.
Well, shit, when Demeter was talking to him, you could just see the plastic bubble come over his face, where he completely, and then like Demeter was explaining to him what happened like 4 billion years ago, right? The very, very first steps in abiogenesis. And then he would say, yeah, but how do you explain the complex ribosome in modern life? So he like took the goalpost and ran 4 billion years ahead. And it just drives you crazy when they do that, because and then Demeter said to him, he said, that's not a problem. But anyway, and then the other thing that I posted in the thing is that there is an endosymbiosis theory of how ribosomes became as complex as they are. Before we leave the Demeter topic, one of his main things is that it was a very, very low fidelity replication in the very beginning. And that low fidelity replication actually created more diversity. It actually created more information. So it was a good thing that it was low fidelity. And it's just a wonderful theory. But anyway, what the hell?
Oh, I linked one paper in the private chat. I think it's him, right? Or maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's not him.
Yeah. I posted 2 papers, Demeter Kunev, 2018. Kunev and his friend Gospodinov is from Bulgaria, and Kunev, I think, originally is from Bulgaria. He's just a wonderful guy to talk to. He was so patient with Otangelo. I would have wrung his neck 10 minutes in. But the other thing on that endosymbiosis, now here's the cute thing. We keep an eye on John Maddox's directory, and one of the things that he posted in there was this paper that was let's see, what the hell was it here? Ribosomal circuits. It was proof for him, of intelligent design, nervous-like circuits in the ribosome, right? And in that paper, they talk about some theories of ribosomal proteins being a very, very early form of endosymbiosis in very, very early cell types. And I haven't read those papers, but I linked the nervous-like circuits, and I may have linked one other. So anyway.
Oh yeah, they basically light into the buzzwords and the terms that sound designish, and not realize that this is not necessarily helping their argument any. And again, that's Maddox. He's going to do that no matter what.
And the other thing that I do have a shared drive that I think I've shared with you, RJ, and with you, Jackson, but I'm not sure if I have, and I will, where we have all of Maddox's papers, and also we're immutable.
I've seen his bibliography. It ain't nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah,
it's not all that impressive.
Immutable and I have put together CSV files and an Excel spreadsheet for I think something like 10,000 papers from 2020 back to 2010 on abiogenesis. And when you mentioned sleep, Jackson, in your presentation, I found it in our CSV immediately under 2011.
Okay.
So anyway, that's a
Nice.
wonderful resource. We have a list, and most of those papers have PDF links in the spreadsheet that you can just click on and download. So very good resource there. And we have a whole bunch of other papers. So anyway, I just wanted to pitch all that and say, guys, we need to work together.
We're all right. You mean,
Uh-oh, we lost
we're
RJ
not,
again.
you mean we're not all rivals?
Yeah, we're not all rivals, right? Even though we have differing theories, right? RNA world versus peptide RNA world, that sort of thing. Anyway, cool presentation. While you were pulling that stuff, I couldn't find your volcano picture. I looked for it, but I did find a good review on, I think, hydrothermal vents.
Which one?
I'm not sure.
Which picture?
The one with the volcano that you had on it was like
The one
like
where
a
it's
red hydrothermal
okay.
vent.
Yeah, hold on.
And I
one
didn't.
sec, let me,
If you put all that shit in the description, it's just always wonderful. So let's see. Where did I find? Okay, hydrothermal vents.
I'm just about out of battery power here, so I'll leave you kids to it here,
before
Battery
we'll
power.
catch you on the
But
rebound.
RJ,
Before
do
you
you
go,
mean?
you have anything you want to shout out in your
He's
channel?
already gone.
Never mind.
Why is RJ
well,
on battery power?
we're going to be doing videos. We've already, Nestle and Ration and RJ and I have already finished the script for the next video. So that should be up
On
soon-ish.
abio?
No, it's on a different topic. We don't do a whole lot of abiogenesis stuff on my channel.
Okay.
You have done all videos on abiogenesis a while back.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we did
Right.
we did a couple way back, but yeah, we don't do a whole lot on that because I'm not a chem person. I don't think any of us are really chem people.
You just do that all right, here it is. Shut the hell up. Next.
Well,
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
we had Demeter on with Otangelo and Anthony Maurice. You know who that is, right? Pudding Brain Maurice, Tony. He's been on. His thing is abiogenesis. Anyway, he called Demeter our so-called expert, right? And here we have a guy that's actually written papers on abiogenesis, and they won't listen to anything you say. It is an impenetrable wall. We all decided that we're going to talk about them more than we talk to them, because talking to them is just getting it's getting repetitive.
That's why I don't and
I know.
I don't deal with the brain trust at all. I don't know why anyone
the
does.
Brotherhood. There's the Brain Trust and the Brotherhood, which is Smokey Saint and Maddox now. So
They're multiplying.
Well, I only have interacted with. Well, I can't seem to interact with Maddox. He won't talk to me. It seems
he won't talk to me either.
So,
That son of a bitch.
It seems to him that does can talk to these people or Erica.
Yeah.
What's up with the name Brain Trust? Like it seems like an oxymoron to me to apply it to them.
Well, that was the
Okay,
joke. That was what Erica Gutsick Gibbons
used
started
it.
calling Standing for Truth in his group, the Brain Trust.
Right, I
And
call
so,
Standing
actually,
for-
funny enough, Standing now uses that name unironically, which I think is the funniest thing.
I call Standing Standley. I call him
It's
Standley.
like
I insist that he's my son from
it's like
previous.
it's like G-Man using preaching to the choir as a positive
Yeah.
as a positive name for his like channel.
I like.
I think we
Sitting for Lies also works, but it's not as funny as Brain
No.
Trust.
I
But
think we actually got them to call themselves the Brotherhood because they call themselves brother all the time. Standing and praise that I am and all this.
yeah.
So we call them the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Well,
Suddenly Hulk Hogan in the background. Hey, brother.
I did get to talk to Smokey, and he is
Oh, yeah.
he was nice. He was very pleasant to talk to, but our conversation was very one-sided.
Yeah.
he will turn on you like a snake.
There was the conversation about common ancestry, right? On the debate channel, right?
But he doesn't know anything.
Did you-
So.
But,
Do what my
no.
internet keeps cutting out.
Yeah, that's the
Oh.
reason I started this series in the first place, because all the doing most craziness when you start talking about evolution and stuff, they have to bring up all the Big Bang and abiogenesis,
Oh yeah.
stuff like that, and planets and stuff that have nothing to do with each other.
Yep.
Really.
But Jackson, like the conversation with Smokey on the debate channel, that was about common ancestry, right?
Mhm.
And then when you ask him about
Yeah, it's about universal
yeah,
common.
when you ask him, all right, okay, where do you draw the line? Like, do you draw the line between these organisms, like these are related, but they aren't related to anything else, or between these? He wasn't prepared to deal with that question. It's the basic question about if you're going to debate common ancestry. That's the basic thing that first thing you need to prepare for.
So
It's
where
really,
did you
it's really hard.
where did you talk to Smokey? On
Oh, Jackson.
I think Jackson froze for a minute.
Your screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
screen froze a bit for a moment.
Okay.
Where did you talk to Smokey? On what channel?
On Modern Day Debate. I posted a talk with him on my channel, so it's one of the
really?
recent videos.
Okay.
So I had
Anyway,
that talk. I did Universal Common Ancestry with Kevin Anderson on Standing's channel, and then so I put that up
Oh my God.
on my channel afterwards. And so both my talk with Kevin Anderson and my talk with Smokey are on my channel, so you don't have to give anybody else views except me.
Good.
Mhm.
Good. Also, we have Molecular Alchemy, who is a geneticist, PhD, molecular biology, genetics, cancer researcher, and he works in his specialty is epigenetics. So he knows a lot about histone modification and all that. So, and but he's way too humble. I mean, the guy is brilliant. So I don't know. And then Immutable
The
Destiny
sexy
is
part of genetics.
yeah. Leophilius is our cosmologist, physicist guy, and just fun to listen to. So anyway, but
Well, immutable destiny in the live chat asks if it's plausible for bacteria to survive, like a meteor impact and being flung into space to another planet.
It's funny you say that. I think it is. I would wager probably for some of them it is. There was the book. I actually just finished the book Entangled Life, which is all about fungi recently. And the guy Merlin, is it Sheldrake? I think he spends a whole chapter talking about lichens, and he actually mentions panspermia and that lichens or some lichens would be able to survive the pressures created by being in a chondrite falling to Earth. So,
was that a book that you just mentioned?
Entangled Life, yeah, by Merlin Sheldrake. I can put it in the side chat.
would they also be able to survive like the impact that would flung them into space? Also,
Yeah, you know.
Well, I think we know that some life can survive, like in the ice, like it says in chat. Like we know some life survived during like the snowball Earth and glaciation of Earth.
It's a pretty good book. It's he talks. Fungi aren't my favorite organisms, but it gave me more of an appreciation for them.
but they're fun guys.
Well, why not?
Those are fun guys.
I mean, I think
those.
I think fungi are neat. There are some really cool experiments with like Saccharomyces and a few other fungi, but
see, you can.
You don't really think about how varied fungal life actually is and how. Do it.
Like a big joke saying.
What'd you say?
We can have sex with fungi because they're closer cousins to us, but plants are further from us. We can have relations with them.
Exactly.
Busy.
Yeah. They are kind of interesting. They're. You say you bought Entangled Life?
I just did. Yeah, in fact, I bought an audio book.
The guy who wrote it is on. He's a good writer. I like his style of writing. I don't know if he's written anything else, but he's on Twitter and I follow him now. But it gave kind of an appreciation for Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, I think all the systems are dying now, so we probably wrap this up soon.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get. Yeah, I shall leave.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you guys for letting me pitch my bullshit.
Yeah. Everything you wanna the pawn before you go?
I want to what?
Like any feature on your channel?
What you mean? What I'm doing in my? Well, I do a weather report every day, but it's good. But nobody should watch it. But I do have links in there, and I kind of keep an eye on the Brain Trust and Maddox, and I just have various bullshit. But we are trying to get better at doing content. We have one something that we're trying to pull off that we have not yet pulled off, which is to do papers. Like we want to do one by Kunev on information. Or Kunin.
Oh,
yeah. But editing shit is just so hard. But anyway, we're trying to do like papers, and we're trying to get away from the drama a little bit and try to do a little more science. So, I've had my channel since May, so it's Production Values Are Not Us is the name of the production company. So,
well, I've been
anyway,
doing this for 10 years. I still suck at this.
Yeah, I know. Okay, thank you guys. I'm gonna bail.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, what about you, Jackson? Anything on your channel coming up?
Well, we finished the script for the next video, so that should be out soonish. Took kind of a 2-month hiatus on videos unintentionally. I don't know. Maybe it was long story short.
Yeah,
Burned you out.
We also took a long time to make a response video for that.
It did. Yeah, thanks to you and EvoGrad for doing that, because he puts out a lot of material. He puts out a lot of material in these videos, and he doesn't understand what he's arguing, and so you almost have to make the argument for him.
Yeah,
because he's
the best summary of my experience making the scripts for the video. Right.
Yeah, he sort of makes like half of an argument, and then you have to ask yourself, was he going somewhere?
Yeah.
with that piece of information? So then you kind of like, okay, here's what I think he's saying, but even still, that's wrong. And the whole thing with the population genetics. Behe, as PZ Meyer said, is a very bad mathematician, and so he's trying to argue against population geneticists on population genetics, and he literally says at one point he doesn't understand why some of the stuff is relevant in their argument, and so so we have to explain why this is relevant and why Behe and LSS in turn just glosses over it, and so it's tiring.
I do wonder how much of what he is saying comes directly from the Discovery Institute, or how much is his original commentary. Like, I don't know.
I guarantee someone has to be writing these with him. There's no way he's doing all the research by himself. I don't believe it. I think there's someone maybe working for the Discovery Institute or affiliated with, is probably giving him some assistance. So that's my guess, anyways.
Or they will say they do a Control F search for creationism, and they replacing it with intelligent design, like the Pandas book, right? Making sure it stays secular in appearance.
Right. Yeah, he didn't respond to our Cambrian videos that the first things that we ever addressed to him. He never responded to those.
It comes onto your channel for a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, we talked about it, but he didn't do a rebuttal style videos like he did we had with him when he did the homology videos.
Yeah.
He didn't put that up, so but since then we've had our back and forth, and now rebuttal videos don't go up on.
Oh, you froze for him. Sorry, Jackson. You
up
froze
on the
for
channel,
a moment.
so he's getting way.
You froze for a moment.
Well, I was just saying now his rebuttal videos are going up on the Discovery Institute's channel rather than his own channel, meaning he's now getting way more views than we are. So
that sucks.
Yeah.
We all need better equipment. all equipment sucks.
Well, it's funny because we were getting more views than him when he was putting them on his own channel, but now that he's affiliated with them, he's getting like tens of thousands of views. And so it's like,
are we responsible for like putting him under the radar of the Discovery Institute? Like, oh, he makes nice.
Wouldn't that
videos.
suck? Wouldn't that suck if that were our fault that he's affiliated with them? I would be like upset with myself.
He's arguing Jackson Weeks. Have him on now.
Oh, it's fun fact actually. David Klinghoffer, who is one of the guys with the Discovery Institute, wrote an article in which he mentioned me as well as the rocks were there. He posted an article saying our very own long story short is going up against the evolutionists. And so he mentioned Jackson Wheaton. I was like, wow, we made it, guys. Nestle, we made it. We're in the big time.
Yay.
Yeah.
So about you, Nestle,
Oh,
you have
well.
anything on your own? Are you on your own channel? On your own channel? Are you just like?
I don't do much on my own channel. Only a couple of videos once every few months, maybe at the most. But still, I have one video that I did a while back about like summarizing the history of everything in a musical video. Not really richly science based, but still entertaining, at least to me.
Nestle, you did that video that I like where you looked at the bits that Raw Matt and Stanley had cut from their video.
That also, yeah.
Where they don't announce it all to anyone that they had removed bits from their video, but they just go snip. It was like it was never there.
Yeah. You usually do on your Jackson on your future debates that you put on your channel. You said that, so you do it now. You put in time codes in your description that way chapters people so we can skip the certain parts of the debate that we've heard like 20 times already.
Well, I suppose that's fair. I mean, if someone wants to, I'll pin their comment. But
because most of the there might be new, but like I said before, most of the debates and creationists have is you hear the same thing over again. I'm like, okay, let's skip this part.
Yeah, that's why I think we shouldn't have a creation versus evolution talk. We should have are dogs related to bears or something like that. Something much more narrowed down where we can talk just about this.
They would still bring up the subject anyways.
Like if you like I would really like to have or maybe not me because I'm really bad at debates. I would think because of my I stumble upon words often in English.
Oh, I thought you did fine when we talked to a bit of Orange, who has also gone up in the ranks of anti-evolutionists.
I think
but still, I would like to have a conversation on new information because that is really a narrow topic, and you can you can really pin them down on that. But when you, of course, do the Evo-Crevo debate, then they will jump from abiogenesis to Big Bang to human evolution to dinosaur evolution and such.
I think it would matter anyways. If you talk, the subject was are bears mammals? They bring up the Big Bang. I'm like what's that do with anything?
Oh yeah, that happened with Dapper Down. Like Dapper Down did a debate with somebody called Mr. Batman, and on whether birds are dinosaurs, and he went straight to abiogenesis and new information and all that stuff. He doesn't address the question of whether birds are dinosaurs or not. He did not. So
yeah, Smokey tried doing that in our debate, and I just said, for the argument, let's just say God started life. All right, now let's get back to where we were, which was 3 billion years later. So
Like
But yeah.
interesting topic. But yeah, but nothing to do with what we're talking about. So let's move on.
Pretty much.
So yeah, well yeah. I think besides this, I take a break from YouTube. I'm trying to enjoy the nice weather while it's still here, and since COVID's a little bit down now, I've been riding my bike. Rode it 20 miles last week.
Nice.
18 miles the week before. So yeah, I'm building my stuff up. But anyways, I'll have all their channels. I'll have all the links of their channels in the description below. Hopefully, I'll be putting new videos soon. Check out their channels. Obviously, they're much more farther the subject than I am. Anyways, never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. We'll see you all next time, whatever that may be.